Good morning. Before we get started here this morning, I'd like to invite Stefan Amundsen. He was our past president and our current president of CHBA Alberta up here to say a few words regarding a loss that our industry took last night.
Just because we have so many industry people here, regrettably have to announce that Del Allen from DA Electric passed away last night. So the industry's here, and it's important to make that note now because he's a longtime supporter of our system, a longtime supporter of our industry, and a longtime supporter of the process that we are going through today, which is working collectively together to find solutions. So I just want to make that announcement, and then later on today we can, our association will make a more formal announcement, but thank you.
So as we start, actually, why don't we take a moment of, just a moment of silence to be thankful. Thank you very much. So good morning. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Anita Hartman. I'm the current president of the CHBA Lethbridge region. I would like to welcome all the candidates to be here with us today for this forum. And I would also like to thank the people in the audience for joining us. Election time is an exciting time here in our city and in our association, and we are fortunate to focus on the election with two other like-minded associations, Urban Development Institute and Lethbridge Construction Association, who have also contributed to the questions we will be asking here today. The CHBA and these other associations have a vested interest in the success of the City of Lethbridge, and we are committed to working collaboratively with City Council and City Administration on any issues that may arise in the future. As an industry that directly employs over 2,100 employees and invests over $132 million a year in wages into our local economy, we are committed to the success of those who are elected as our new council. And in this forum is where we are going to demonstrate to the candidates and to the public just how committed and serious we are about building a phenomenal community. Before we begin, I would like to introduce the panel who will be asking their questions today. I've already introduced Stefan Amundsen, our past president and our current CHBA Alberta president. And I would like to introduce Angela Cornforth, who is my incoming president behind me. Now, if I could ask Pat Sidlecki, our moderator, to explain the format to us today. Please enjoy yourselves.
Thanks, Anita. Just to mention for all the candidates, make sure that when you do answer your questions that you are close to the microphone, as it's pretty directional so that everybody can hear you. So the forum today is based upon finding out candidates' opinions on issues affecting the residential construction industry. The forum will be split into two separate areas, a question and an answer period, with the mayoral candidates followed by a question and answer period for the councillor candidates. Now, the moderator myself is in control of the forum, and I will be enforcing the timelines as set out. At this forum, if time permits, at the end of the question and answer period, we will be accepting written submissions from the audience. At that time, you may hand your question to the runner, and she will deliver it to the panel. After I am finished explaining the format, each candidate will have 30 seconds to introduce themselves. The mayoral candidates, we will start in alphabetical order. It'll be reverse order for the councillor candidates. The mayoral portion will be conducted as follows. There are 4 questions that will be asked to each mayoral candidate. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to that question. Upon approaching the 50-second mark, a 10-second warning will be issued by the timer by holding up a yellow card. Please wrap up your remark within the 10 seconds as the moderator, myself, will be calling for the next question from the panel. Mayoralty candidates will have the opportunity for 1 rebuttal each. You must hold up one of the blue rebuttal cards that you'll be given 30 seconds at that time to provide your rebuttal. A 10-second warning will be given by a yellow card being shown. Now, the counselor portion will be conducted as follows. Candidates will be asked a specific question from a panel member. The candidates, which may be more than one that the question is directed to, will be given 1 minute to answer the question. A 10-second warning at the 50-second mark will be issued by a yellow card being shown by the timer, and the candidates will be expected to answer in alphabetical order. All other candidates, including mayoral candidates that the question has not been directed to, may provide rebuttals to that question. Now, to indicate your wish to comment, please hold up one of your rebuttal cards, and you'll be given 30 seconds to provide your rebuttal upon the other candidates finishing their question and by being asked by myself. A 10-second warning will be given by a yellow card being shown. Now, candidates are given 2 rebuttal opportunities for the whole forum, with the exception of the mayoralty candidates who have an additional rebuttal card that may only be used during the mayoral portion of this forum and must be acknowledged by myself for them to begin. If a candidate tries to formulate an additional rebuttal, it will be stopped by myself, the moderator. Now, at the conclusion of the forum, a light lunch will be served in the foyer with an opportunity for candidates to mingle with the audience. So let's begin with introductions of the mayoralty candidates, and then the councillor candidates will follow. We'll start with Mr. Farron-Ellis.
That sounds on. Is that on? Hearing no complaints, I will assume it's on. Complaints will start later. Hello, home builders, land developers, members of associated trades, services, and suppliers. I'm Farron-Ellis, political scientist, current city councillor, candidate for mayor, and a friend of the suburbs, as well as other fine places around Lethbridge. I'm campaigning for your vote for mayor based on a platform providing you with reasonable, responsible, reliable leadership. Proven leadership that will allow for the stability in Lethbridge, that will allow for you to remain prosperous in your business endeavors. I'm looking forward to today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Bridget Burns.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for coming. Your industry is incredibly important to how our city progresses. You basically build our community, so it's important that we have the engagement and the ability to communicate back and forth to make sure that the laws that we're making that affect you directly, you've had input. That's one of the pillars of my platform, which is to be a leader who engages in the community, and you have the opportunity to engage back. Over the 3 years on council, I've demonstrated my commitment to that. It's not just lip service. I've passed resolutions in order for that to happen. The third piece of my platform is advocate. It's important that you have a strong advocate outside of our city limits so that you have a strong voice at provincial and federal levels when we're bringing forward issues that affect us directly. I have that experience, I have that passion, and that's something I want to do for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Burns. Curtis Simpson.
Good morning, and thank you very much for being here. I'm Curtis Simpson, candidate for mayor. I'd like to thank the Home Builders Association for having this forum and giving us an opportunity to express our views for this industry and for the city at large. I have a vision of the city that's going to take us to 10, 20 years from now, and I want to input from the Canadian Home Builders Association on where that vision should be. But I also want to make sure that we're working together to build a strong, healthy, vibrant Lethbridge that is inclusive for all demographics and that we are all prosperous in making Lethbridge a great city.
Thank you. Chris Spearman.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris Spearman, and I have a vision for Lethbridge. I have 38 years of business experience, 30 years of community involvement experience, 18 years of elected experience, 10 years of environmental management experience, and 30 years on the executive of a sister organization, the Industrial Association of Southern Alberta. My vision for Lethbridge includes 3 basic areas: fiscal responsibility, caring for people, and managing our environment. Wouldn't you like to have a mayor who understands utility rates and wants them to be fair to our customers, a mayor who has many years of experience?
Thank you, Mr. Spearman. We will now begin with introductions from the councillor candidates, and we'll start in reverse order. And we first will welcome Marco Bergeron. You have 30 seconds. Then let's go reverse order. Rena Wass, let's try that.
Thank you. Hello, CHBA. Well, can you hear me?
Yeah, just speak pretty close to the mic, please.
Well, being a tradesperson, you're an audience I can certainly relate to. I've been involved in many aspects of construction, from house building to design and decorating. I've had apprentices. I've taught the apprenticeship program, and during my time in housing, I've built many homes in this community. I truly understand the challenges this industry faces and the potential it has. I want this industry to succeed. Having me on council will assure you that you have someone who understands and is willing to smooth out the red tape to keep our industry thriving and diversified.
Thank you very much. Jeff Wall.
Thank you, and glad you're here for us today to be able to answer some questions. I have a background in skills and perspective to contribute that will help our great city become even better. Because of my experience in civil engineering, owning a small business, and working in the not-for-profit sector, I bring relevant skills, talents, and abilities to help with council with a well-rounded vision and perspective. Primary pillars for me are progressive planning, responsible spending, supporting our local businesses, and being holistic in our approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. Mako Tani.
Hello, my name is Mako Tani. I'm running for clean water, clean air, clean earth. I am concerned about my great-grandchildren of my grandchildren. In 50 years, our earth will be a mess. Anyway, Bridget, Ryan, all the present city councilors up until October the 21st or 20th. Mayor Dojic pay back the increase of $6,900.
Thank you very much, Mako Tani.
You're welcome.
Leah Switzer.
Hello. My name is Leah Switzer, and I'm running as a candidate for one main reason: to put the skills that I've gained in 20 years of public service to work for the people of Lethbridge, you. This requires asking the right questions, doing your homework, expanding our employment opportunities for graduates, creating an environment where small business can launch, thrive, create jobs, supporting Lethbridge families for a variety of options for healthy lifestyle choices, keeping a balanced approach to infrastructure services and development. I have the track record to be believable, the experience to be capable, and the history to be trustworthy.
Thank you very much. Leah Switzer. Joey Shackelford.
Thanks to the Canadian Home Builders Association and everyone for coming out today. Yes, I am Joey Shackelford. I'm a 58-year-old high school retired now teacher. I grew up in a family business here in Lethbridge. My father and grandfather owned and operated the movie business here in Lethbridge for many years. I chose a different route. I'm in small business now as a part-time job. As a high school teacher, I really backed the apprenticeship programs that are available in high school. And
Thank you, Mr. Shackelford.
Thank you.
Next, Harold Perversoff.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I had a very successful career with the federal government for 37 years. I worked with Custom Border Services and also with Revenue Canada taxation here in Lethbridge. I know many of you through my job, and I can say that we resolved issues together, and that's how I want to work from the council perspective with you together. I have one word, and that's communication, both ways. You can count on me. I have got full time to dedicate to City Council, having been fully retired.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Parker.
Thank you very much for coming out today, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the issues that are affecting us. And I think we're going to be talking about home building, the development industry, and I think our industry is probably at the cusp of going into a bigger boom. All we have to do is look at our population. We're already 90,000. We're going to be close to 100,000 within the next 10 years. It's important that we work with the home builders, UDI, to make sure we have the proper infrastructure in place. We have to listen to them. Those are the ones that are on the front line. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Rob Mayashiro.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for having us here today. My 30 years as a human services professional have given me a unique understanding in how government decisions affect people. Not only that, but my father was a small businessman in Tabor, and he owned a plumbing and heating shop for years. So I understand as well how important it is to have a strong home building industry in our community. I'm looking at advocating for age-friendly community development, as well as talking more with the CHBA about certified aging in place.
Thank you very much,
specialist program.
Mr. Mayashiro. Next up, Carrie Milder.
Good morning. I wanted to talk to you today about my ability to be a strong and viable candidate in this election. I am passionate about good governance. I have strong communication skills. I understand relationship building, team building, consensus building. I ask the tough questions, and I ask for input. I will listen to your concerns and your solutions, and I respectfully ask for your support on October 21st. Thank you.
Thank you. Darlene McLean.
Hello. My platform should be focused on the principles of good governance, as I've said before at a previous platform. And what does that primarily mean? Providing services and facilities that are deemed necessary and desirable. And this needs to be accomplished within a framework of economic viability. So I will not be giving blanket yes answers to municipal spending questions without consulting taxpayers and the numbers. I have been self-employed in the financial services industry for 18 years. I intend to continue.
Thank you very much. Next, Rory McEwen.
Hello, thank you. My name is Rory McEwen, born and raised in Lethbridge, and I have worked in various industries, including the golf industry, the oil field industry, construction, and sales and advertising. The reason that I'm running for council is that I see that where the city is, and I would like to help improve where it needs improvement and support current projects that are working well. Thank you.
Thank you. George McRae.
Good morning, and thank you to the Canadian Home Builders Association Lethbridge branch for this opportunity to speak. I have 30 years' experience in the concrete cutting industry in Lethbridge. There are many issues, in my opinion, that are facing the CHBA, such as zoning, off-site levies, and business taxes. I will be open, and I will encourage your association's input to improve our city. I fully support the CHBA and its endeavors, such as your human resource committees, your exploring trades committee, and your Girls with Tools. I look forward to your support.
Thank you,
and
Mr.
working with
McRae.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Morrow.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for your interest this morning. I am Joe Morrow, born, raised, and lived all my life in Lethbridge. I've been married 29 years, U of L grad, and 4 terms on council. I'm blessed to have the opportunity to currently do 3 things I love: take care of my dad, be a member of council, and coach the college soccer team. I am seeking my 5th term on council because I have passion for what I do, and I take your issues seriously, and I'm not afraid to bring them forward to council for debate. On October 21st, re-elect Joe Morrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Next up, Michelle Madge.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to this forum, and thank you all for attending today. I'd like to open by saying that I believe it's an honor and a privilege to serve. I've called Lethbridge home for about 20 years now and lived as a local girl most of my life here. My father's a stonemason from Austria, my brothers are in the trades, and I understand this business intimately. My promise is to be accessible, responsible, and hardworking, and these are not just words, this is how I live my life. For more information on me and what I stand for, please visit my website at votemadge.ca or call my phone 894-VOTE.
Thank
on
you.
October 21st, vote Michelle Madge.
Thank you. Next up, Mark Lieb.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Lieb. I've been a business owner and financial advisor for the last 21 years here in Lethbridge. I have a lovely wife that is not available here today. She's in Edmonton with our 10-day-old grandson, so that was the priority. My platform is taxes, fiscal spending, communication, and accountability, which I think is very important when working with the Home Builders Association. I look forward to your consideration on October 21st. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Layton.
Good morning. At this time last year, me and my wife Sandy were stuck down in Washington, D.C., messing with another Sandy. The key word this year is inclusion. Inclusion of every citizen in the city of Lethbridge. I would like to see the council here in Lethbridge include every citizen, even the challenged. And that is my goal on council. Every citizen needs to be
Thank you,
represented.
Mr. Layton. Thank you. Liz Owascu.
Thank you. I've served 2 terms on City Council. In my first term in 2004, the home builders, the UDI, and Lethbridge City staff had a terrible relationship. We brought the various parties together, and now I can say that their relationship is the best that it's ever been. It will only stay that way if we keep the dialogue going, and I'm committed to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Blaine Higgin.
Thank you. My name is Blaine Higgin, and I've lived in Lethbridge for over 23 years. During that time, I attended college, where I studied business law and accounting, and have owned and operated various local businesses, including the current Copy Express. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity of meeting with some of the current executive of the Lethbridge Home Builders Association, and this board has a vision that is second to none, and I hope I have the opportunity to work with them as a councillor. Thank you.
Thank you. Martin Heavyhead.
Hello, I'm Martin. I'm campaigning on 4 issues important to me: urban agriculture, to establish a municipal food policy, ensure local food production and food security; quality childcare. There's a lot of single parents in the community. Shift workers have very difficult to find quality childcare and afford. Sustainable development is also one of my platforms, and vote for me.
Thank you very much. Dylan Hargreaves.
Good morning, my name is Dylan Hargreaves, and I have had the pleasure of serving as president of the Lethbridge College Students Association previously. And now as a college graduate, it is my desire to take it one step further and work with the city as a whole. I believe we must ensure that Lethbridge grows safely and responsibly. We need to plan ahead to ensure we have the jobs, the infrastructure, the developments, and the services in place that we need. We're not going to stop growing, so we must plan for growth as it comes so that we can build for it. So I encourage you to visit my website, dylanhargreaves.com.
Thank you very much. Tyler Gashad.
Good morning and welcome, everyone. My name is Tyler Shade. I've been involved with community organizations for the past 25 years, and I've also served on 3 City of Lethbridge committees as well. Being on these committees and being on community organizations, I've learned some about the city's operations and processes of city administration and city council. I believe service is important. One of my commitments is to hold monthly open houses in which I get feedback from the community, and that information and discussion among council will help guide my decisions on council. I will focus on ensuring that Lethbridge is safe, welcoming community for everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Shade. Yves Gauthier.
I was born and raised in Quebec, and I did 13 years in the military, and that was before I went for qualifications as a machinist, mold maker, and mold designer. I specialized in Windsor for a few years before the auto industry left, and moved here with my wife, Dr. Capisonda. She's a pediatrician, well known here. Graduated from Lethbridge College as a engineering, design, and drafting. So for 3 years, I kind of studied the design of roads, buildings.
Thank you, Mr. Gauthier. Wade Galloway.
Hello, thank you for coming today. My name is Wade Galloway. I moved to Lethbridge in 2006 to buy 2 local businesses, bringing an existing one with me. I added a 4th one by 2007, bought a downtown building in 2011, and by 2012 had divested of active business holdings. I understand business and how they need to be run. Growing up, politics was an important part of my life as my father was a Reeve and ran as a federal candidate. It's in my blood, and I understand the time commitment and what needs to go into politics to make it effective. I was a vocal advocate and fundraiser for the Lethbridge Skateboard Association, which recently resulted in the groundbreaking of the new SLP skate park.
Thank you. Fiona Doherty.
Hi, good morning. My name is Fiona Doherty. I've lived in Lethbridge since 1986. I co-own a small construction business. It's a numbered business. It's in the field of oil and gas development. My spouse works and I do the books. I am running on a platform of award system, I believe with voter turnout at an all-time low. 35% in the last election. We need to do something to engage our voters. We need to give them a voice, and we need to bring them into the political process. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Days.
Thank you, Pat. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the CHBA, the LCA, and the UDI for hosting this forum, and thank you for taking the time to get involved so you can make an informed decision on October 21st. My name is Peter Days, and I'm applying to you for a position on City Council. I have 32 years of experience in the media as a news reporter and news director, which has me questioning why things are done, and I want to be your whys, that's WHY' choice for council, asking the tough questions. I also have a background in business, having spent the last 15 years as station manager at Global Lethbridge, managing budgets and staff. I look forward to earning your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Kaufman.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My record on council over the last term is very strong when it comes to the Canadian Home Builders Association, the LCA, and UDI. I have taken the time to meet with the membership, with the executive, to inform myself and to learn on the issues that are very important to your industry. Your motto is building partnerships, and that's one partnership that needs to be strengthened, is the relationship between City Hall and your associations. If I am reelected by your support, I will continue that work ethic and continue to support and advocate on your behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jeff Carlson.
Thanks, Pat. On October 21st, we're going to be choosing the leadership to help guide our community over the next 4 years, and it's so important that we all take the time to make the best decision possible. I'm Alderman Jeff Carlson. It's been my great honor to serve you as your Alderman for the last 6 years, and I look forward to continue serving you as your councillor. I've worked with many of you over the past 2 terms and your colleagues on various issues and committees, and while we haven't always agreed, we have always focused on building a better community. And I look forward to continuing that relationship. On October 21st, please vote Jeff Carlson.
Thank you, everyone, for your introductions. We'll get into the mayoralty question period now. And from our panel, we will ask Anita Hartman to ask the first question.
Thank you very much, Pat. This first question is for the mayoral candidates. We will begin with Farron Ellis and work our way down the table. Am I on?
No.
No. Oh. Well, I didn't need to be on.
You should be. I don't have my hearing aid. No.
Okay. Are you ready, Farron?
All right. Are you on? You're a little off.
Just need to be closer.
That's okay.
Check.
Farron.
Yes.
Do you believe that a municipality should be heavily involved as a business in residential land development for profit which competes directly with private enterprise, and what is your reason?
Well, thanks, Anita. We'd have to define heavily involved, but Lethbridge is in that business, and we have been for many years. As a matter of fact, the development on the west side wouldn't exist at all if the city didn't kickstart that. When it comes to our land development, some of our projects are more successful than others. Those that are successful generate considerable revenue that goes back into the parks. The north side sports complex, the Northside Park, other areas, parks are improved in Lethbridge because of that revenue. Direct competition, the biggest thing we need to worry about is how many lots are put on at one time and manage that lot supply. I know the city is the City Land Development Corporation is very responsive to the needs of the builders and making adjustments as we go along. And I can't believe I'm not being red or yellow carded yet. Well, there it is. So yes, I would continue with the current development or the current plans, because although there are private sector developers now, there haven't always been, and we need to ensure that those lots continue to be available.
Let's go to Bridget.
Thank you. Thanks very much. This is something that's come up actually quite a bit in the last number of years, and I think what's important is that we do take a look at this. So there are definitely municipalities that actively engage in land development, whether it's industrial land development or residential land development. It is something that I want to take a look at. We have to make sure that we're doing market-driven development, make sure that the process, just because it worked in the past, doesn't mean it's working now. So let's take a look at that. And let's engage with the community, the industry, to see how this is working. There are a number of things that we've heard that do have a positive impact in our community because we are in land development. We see that in Saskatoon, Edmonton as well. So there are certainly places where it works. I'm always open to the idea of re-examining our processes to make sure that they're fair and that we're working together on solutions and that we're doing a good thing.
Thank you. Curtis Simpson.
Thank you. It's definitely something to be considered. I believe that the city does have a place in making sure that the developments are going in the right direction. We need to make sure that the city knows what's going on as far as the developments are going, and if it means that we are involved in making a profit to make sure that some developments that need to occur are happening, then that might need to be the case. But most of all, the conversation is essential. We need to make sure that we are all having a conversation, that it's fair for not only private business, but also for the city and the city taxpayers, and that it's an all-around fair system, and that's just going to come through pure conversation and hashing it out.
Thank you. Chris Spearman.
I'm going to take a little bit different tack. The Land Development Department was originally got involved with residential development when we wanted to establish residential development on the west side after the building of the University of Lethbridge. I think the time has come and passed for the city being involved in residential development. I think we need to begin phasing that out. I think the city should be focused on downtown development and on industrial development. So I think we have lots of private developers, lots of competitive people. The city should set the zones and the standards for residential areas, and we should leave it to the private developers to develop them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question by Stephen Amundsen.
I know somewhere in here I got a question about fluoride in concrete, but I'm going to leave that one alone.
Very good. Very good.
We'll begin with Bridget Mearns and work our way down the table. We're going to pay for this tomorrow, I know. The responsibility of city administration is to bring forth recommendations on various projects and procedures. A lot has been said in this election about how administration and council works together. So if a recommendation is brought forth that you do not support or agree with, how would you handle that? What would you do?
Bridget?
Thank you very much. It's a great question, and I think there is a perception out there that anything that comes before council that we don't have any input into, or we don't question, or that we're just going to carte blanche accept it, and that's just simply not the case. I recently brought forward a resolution that affected your industry where I directed our city administration to work with UDI, LCA, as well as the home builders to make sure that the bylaws that were coming forward regarding signage was consulted with your industry first, so that the bylaws that do come forward, when they do get to council, they've been thoroughly vetted through your industry, and that's extremely important to me. So one of the questions, or one of the things we can do to make sure that that is happening, is by asking those questions, making sure that our administration has gone out to the industry and is consulting with the people that are being affected by the laws being brought forward.
Thank you. Curtis Simpson.
Yeah, that's a great question. That is ultimately, it's about making sure we're representing the people that are electing us. Administration will have ideas and they will come at it at a certain perspective, but there is also a vision for the city and what people want to see happen, and that's all about the conversations. But it also has to work both ways too, because a lot of people will come with problems with city administration or the problems that they're having getting things accomplished, projects put forward, and we as a council need to make sure that we're putting forth back to administration that there are concerns and that they need to be dealing with stuff as well. So we're acting as an intermediary of the two people, the people and the administration, and we have to make sure all sides are covered and that we're listening to the best solutions. Thanks.
Thank you. Chris Spearman.
My approach on this is to try and make sure that our administration and your industry are better aligned, that there's a good relationship between the administration and our industry. What I would be doing as your mayor is making sure, checking back with you to see what type of issues you're facing and what things need to be smoothed out along the way. If something's coming to council that I personally don't agree with, I'll be coming back to you and asking you for your feedback. Maybe I'll be right, maybe I'll be wrong, but certainly I'm going to deal with the experts and get your opinion before anything moves forward on city council. Thank you.
And Farron Ellis.
Thanks, Pat. Well, Steph, as you know, I'm usually not too shy about voicing my opinions and contrary opinions on issues. The most important thing is going in informed so that you can ask the critical questions, not taking everything at face value is Bridget has said some councils in the past have had that reputation. I don't think this one has at all. Some of my personal initiatives on this were when it came to our operating budget. The city administration came to us and said they need 4.7% minimum tax increase just to cover the base. I led the charge saying, no, not good enough. Come back with something less. They came back with 3.7%. Again, said not good enough. At that point, administration very reasonably said, why don't we stop this guessing game and tell us what is the maximum. The mayor and I got together. I preferred about 2%. We settled on 2.5%, and we worked from there to bring about the lowest average residential tax and business tax increase the Lethbridge residents have seen in over a decade.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Thank you. Next question by Angela Cornforth.
Microphone's not on. You have to go really close.
How do you propose to improve the city's relationship with the provincial government and have appropriate funding in place for various projects?
We'll start with Curtis Simpson. Thank you.
How do we improve a relationship? Obviously, the best way to improve any relationship is by dialogue, making sure that the needs of Lethbridge are put forth, that they understand why we have these needs. And as acting as mayor, you are the head of the biggest lobby group in southern Alberta, 90,000 people. So we have to make sure that the government understands what our needs are and why they're put forward. I think that going forward, projects that involve community development, including affordable housing, those kind of projects need to be approached, and with the city taking the lead on them, having the province come back, spearheading them. Affordable housing comes up, but we can also incorporate other things that are great for the builders, including retail underneath that affordable housing and mid to luxury condos above that kind of development. So our goal is to definitely make sure our voice is heard, but also to ensure that the needs of the builders are being met at the same time.
Thank you. Chris Bierman.
That involves building a good relationship with our provincial government. I was successful in doing that with my service with the Holy Spirit School Board. We had 13 schools, for example. 9 of them were either replaced or were completely renovated. That was almost $60 million in capital investment in this southern Alberta. And generally, we had the most successful record of any school board in the province. And that happened because we built a great relationship with the provincial government. Every project was built on time and on budget, and we were seen to be reliable and competent at the job. So I have 18 years of experience of that, and I look forward to doing that with our city. Thank you.
Darren Ellis.
Thank you. Establishing those types of close working relationships that have already been mentioned is important, and it goes beyond just the local MLAs, even beyond the cabinet. We've got to ensure that there are good working relationships with and clear communications between our administration and the deputy ministers, as well as other members of the provincial bureaucracy, where a lot of these initiatives that impact us get started and get worked through. We also have to ensure that the provincial government understands that there are one-size-fits-all models that are typically based on the needs of Calgary and Edmonton, don't necessarily work for other smaller municipalities such as Lethbridge, Red Deer, Medicine Hat. Teaming up with those other medium-sized cities and smaller municipalities is one of the best routes to go. One of the best examples there is when it comes to transit. While the provincial government will put significant funding into LRTs in the larger cities, the cities that do not and never will have LRTs need a different funding model.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Bridget Burns.
Thank you very much. At the beginning, when we first started this, I talked about one of my pillars, and one of them was being an advocate for the city, and this is a good example of how this is important. Relationships, networking, and understanding the political process is how we get successful at this, and of course understanding our city and being passionate about it. The provincial government contributes a significant amount to our capital budget as well as our operating budget. About $42 million of our operating budget comes from relationships out of our city, either with other municipalities, the federal or the provincial government. So it's extremely important that we have a strong voice at those levels, and that we have the ability to be an advocate, and a strong advocate, and that doesn't mean an adversary, and I think it's important that we have someone who knows the difference.
Thank you. And And one more question for the mayoral portion, and I'll turn it back over to Anita.
We will begin with Chris Spearman. I can guarantee you that the CHBA, the LCA, and UDI will all be very crystal clear about our expectations of our government. With that being said, what are your expectations regarding CHBA?
Well, I've begun having meetings with UDI, and I've met with CHBA, as you know. I'm trying to understand what the housing industry expectations are, and I have to tell you honestly, that's an area that I haven't had a whole lot of experience in, but I do have a lot of business experience. I am an entrepreneur. I've helped social organizations become successful through my entrepreneurial pursuits and experience, and I would look forward to having a positive relationship with the CHBA, UDI, and others, so that I understand the importance and the economic contribution of this organization to our city, the contribution to employment, and it's important that we do things right and have that positive relationship between the CHBA and the leadership at the City of Lethbridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ellis?
Thanks, Pat. Directly to the question, I appreciate the both UDI as well as the home builders expectations that they will be, or that we will be clear with them. My expectations would be clear back, and that has been very successful over at least my term on council. The communications has improved dramatically, as Alderman Owasky was saying earlier on. It's also important that council understands that this industry is not a monolith. There's a great deal of diversity in it, both with land developers, the home builders, commercial developers come into play here as well. The services, the trades, the sub-trades, all of the people that are involved in this industry. And it is an industry that I have a great deal of familiarity with. I campaigned last time as well as this time as being a friend of the suburbs. And we need to ensure that when suburban development occurs, not only does it occur properly, but it occurs in Lethbridge, because if we were to stifle suburban development here in Lethbridge, it's still going to happen. It's just going to happen outside of the city.
Thank you. Next, Bridget Burns.
Thank you. So the expectation that I would want from CHBA is engagement, reporting back to council on a regular basis on your successes as well as your challenges, regular meetings with the mayor, working with administration, back and forth, bringing up issues as they arise, not allowing them to grow, making sure that we're working together. Really, we want the same things, which is a successful community, and you build them. So it's important that we're building Lethbridge together.
Thank you. And Curtis Simpson.
I think the most important thing is the clear and constant communication between the CHRB and the city. We need your input on development issues, and especially we need your expert advice whenever it's needed, and sometimes when it's not even asked for. We need your expert advice to come in and tell us exactly what the industry is thinking on these matters. Thank you.
All right, so that concludes the mayoralty portion. We have a rebuttal. That was my next question. You have 30 seconds, Mr. Ellis.
Thank you. Since I have one to spare and all. Yeah, just to finish up on the last point. There's been a lot of talk in this campaign, including from candidates in this portion of our section, about urban sprawl and other attempts to limit suburban development. One thing we need to be clear is that suburban development will happen. If it doesn't happen in Lethbridge, it will happen in surrounding communities. It will happen in the county. And that is the worst case scenario. You have that suburban development, but they're not paying taxes to Lethbridge, yet they're consuming services within Lethbridge that are subsidized by the taxpayers.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. So that concludes the mayoralty portion of the forum. We do have another one. All right, Curtis, go ahead.
Just touching on the urban sprawl issue, yes, suburban development is a necessity for growth of a city, but is it the only development that's necessary? I don't think so, and I think that working with the builders, we need to concentrate on a little bit more urban redevelopment and city center development. So it doesn't have to just be suburbs, but it can be a lot of other things that will make your industry grow quite fast.
Thank you. Any other rebuttals? Okay, good to go. Quadruple check here. All right, questions will now be directed to council or candidates, so please remember that each candidate has only 2 rebuttals for the entire portion of this forum. And if you would like to use your rebuttal, you must be acknowledged and asked by myself. So a 10-second warning will be given at the 50-second mark. And could I please have the first question from the panel from Stefan?
Hello again. This question is for Peter Days, Mark Lieb, and Joey Shackelford. Before I ask the question, I want to make the statement that we believe that residential construction, commercial construction, and development is a fundamental part of a good economy and not the result of a good economy. If an issue is presented to council that affects business or development and you don't see industry in the room or at the table, what would you do? Starting with Peter Days.
Well, thank you very much for that question. I think growth pays for growth, and I think that what I would like to see happening is I've heard of how suggestions that there has been some improvement in communication. That's not what I'm hearing. With all due respect to the incumbents, what I'm hearing is that council members need to be at the discussions. There's good discussions happening between administration and the housing industry, but council members aren't necessarily part of it, from what I hear. And so I would look at making it a 3-way system so that councilor members can, instead of relying on administration for direction, can make their own decisions as to what needs to be done.
Thank you, Peter. Mark Lee.
Thank you, Stefan. To answer that question, part of my platform is communication. When I made the decision to run for city council, I actually sat down with about 48 different individuals from various different organizations, boards of various different departments, and so on. And I believe strongly in the fact that we should communicate with everybody that is being affected by a resolution from council, whether or not they're for or against the resolution, so that we have all vantage points. If the Canadian Home Builders was not present and we're dealing with an issue that involves them, and they have not already provided information from their vantage point in regards to that, I would ask for that resolution to be delayed so that we would have the opportunity to consult them and get feedback from them with regards to their opinions on that. And that would be my stand with regards to you not being present at the meeting. Thank you.
Joey Shackelford.
Well, Stefan, good question. To me, that's kind of like making a decision in your relationship without your wife present. To me, that's a little bit dangerous. You need, you're the expert, you need to be at the table for any major decisions when it comes to development. We've heard a lot about communication here, that's correct. When people sit down at the table and hash out ideas and make decisions and leave nothing on the table, there is no miscommunication to the public or miscommunication to either side, and everybody can, at the end of the day, shake hands and feel they got the best deal.
Thank you very much. Do we have any rebuttals? We'll start with Mr. Morrow.
Thank you. That's a great question, and I think members of council tried their best to communicate with whatever issue we're dealing with. But one thing that I've always been trying to understand and trying to push for is our administration are paid, highly paid to do their job, and so I think we need to allow them to do their job, and I think council does that. The problem that I see is that when our administration meets with whichever organization, in this case your group, what ends up happening is that the message does not come back to council. So I think we need to put in place an opportunity, a meeting of some kind. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ellis, 30 seconds.
Thank you, and thanks for the reminder, Pat. Peter, I'm not sure who you've been talking to, but since I've been on council, virtually everybody in the industry has said how communications have improved dramatically over the course of this council. It's not just formal communication apparatus that are set up, though. I've probably attended or talked to more home builders, and it's people of associated industry than anybody else, not just because the CHBA has more events than anybody else, but because there's that ongoing communication on an ongoing basis.
Thank you very much. Any other rebuttals? Yes.
What I see currently happening, and I've had direct experience with this, is that stakeholders are not listened to. The Home Building Association is a stakeholder. their voice is very important, and council needs to mandate administration to listen to stakeholders. That has to change.
Thank you. Rob Mayashiro.
So part of it is that city council can't meet with every single group that comes before them. And that being said, if a resolution comes before council or is in the process that's brought about by administration, it's incumbent upon the council members to seek the information so they understand the issue. It's not necessary that every single group has an audience with the council about everything. I think that's what people need to understand, is that if councilors want to be educated on issues, then they need to get out and get the information to make an educated decision.
Thank you very much. Wade Galloway.
Thank you. One of the things that's important to me is affecting a culture that's open and transparent and involves engagement. One of the things I've proposed previously is an ability to push an agenda further into the future. Presently, they come out late Thursday afternoon, leaving one business day, and by Monday is when the decisions are made on it. There's simply not enough time for council members to engage with the community and stakeholders in this type of environment. Pushing it further into the future allows greater dialogue.
Thank you, Mr. Galloway. Any other rebuttals? Alrighty, we'll move on to our next question then. Angela?
This question is for Ryan Parker, Joe Morrow, and Darlene McLean. Beginning with Ryan, how do you view council's relationship with administration, and what do you think your role should be in working with city administration?
Well, I think, as most people know, city council does not run the city, and I don't say that lightly. City council's role, like any other community, is to set policy and direction for the community. We only have one employee that works for the city, and that is the CAO, the Chief Administrative Officer. It is his job to implement the policy and direction that council gives him. If he or she is not doing that job, it's time to change that person. But it's important that we have a good relationship with our administration, a relationship where we're not in the same bed, but rather...
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Thank you.
Joe Morrow.
Thank you. Well, if anybody has followed my term on council, seems to have a reputation with the administration, one that questions administration, it's got to be me. I do believe, though, that sometimes we dig in a little too deep, and we need to focus more on setting policies and procedures. We need to find ways of being able to measure whether they're accountable or not, whether they're efficient or not. We are the board of directors, and we have one employee, and I think it's our job that we task that employee to make sure that everything that we as council and the community wishes to have as services and costs, making things efficient and effective, we have to have ways of measuring those, and not quite sure if we're quite there yet. If I'm elected, that's one of the things that I would push for, is that we find ways and put into place more policy, more procedure, where we make our staff, our city manager, and down the line, more accountable and efficient to council.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Darlene McLean.
Running this city is not a two-way street, it's a three-way street. I have to consult a lot with citizens, and I want to hear what their concerns are. As far as administration, I look to them to sit on the fence and just present the facts and the data and all of them. I do not want any political interpretations of their jobs. I just want for them to fulfill the need that I have to supply to the citizens information, and to be able to gather that information and make decisions with that information and move forward. And there is pressure, yes, I believe from citizens, and councillors are putting pressures on themselves too, that they want to micromanage administration. That's unfortunate, but I completely understand why citizens are feeling that way. And maybe it isn't always fair in every department for all administration to be blanketed with that culture.
Thank you, Ms. McLean. Thank you. Do we have any rebuttals? Leah Switzer?
Yeah, I recognize that council's position is to look after the alignment and the strategic planning and the policy of the city. However, it is also council's responsibility to make sure that they have all the information they need from the administration And that includes the CAO, but it also includes information that allows them to make decisions on efficiencies, on capacities.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Do we have any other rebuttals? This question? If we don't, then we will move on to the next question. Anita Hartman will now ask the next one.
This question is for Wade Galloway, Liz Waskew, and Michelle Match. Beginning with Wade Galloway. The CHBA is comprised of members who are longtime experts in this industry of building responsibly and who are looking for ways to improve overall building practices. If the CHBA comes to you with a direct ask on the advice of professionals in the industry and administration doesn't favor the recommendation, what are your next steps?
Wade?
Well, the fortunate thing is that administration, last time I checked, doesn't have a vote. So while their opinion is certainly taken under advisement, one certainly does need to seek the input of the experts in the field, weigh that against what we view as the best interest of the city, and act accordingly. So I'm not afraid to challenge administration. I'm not afraid to ask probing questions, and I'm not afraid to send them back to get more information. But ultimately, we need to recognize that there are 90,000 people in the city, and there are experts in many fields, not just home building. So this is one issue, but certainly when we look at other issues facing the community, it's definitely something that we do need to be engaged and embracing the expertise that is available in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Liz Waskew?
Thank you. I think it is important to remember who the experts are, and you need to keep in mind that I can barely hammer in a nail without hurting somebody. So keeping that in mind, what I am good at is mediating, and I'm good at bringing parties together. So if there appears to be something that needs to be done, and we have some kind of a tussle between administration and the industry, I'll bring them together. We'll sit them at the table. We've done it a number of times over the years since I've been on council, and dialogue is what solves problems.
Thank you. And Michelle Match?
Thank you for that question. I believe we have experts on both sides in this question, where we have the experts in the industry with the CHBA, and then the experts in the administration who are giving recommendations to council. I think we need to look at both sides, and if admin doesn't agree with the decisions, or it doesn't favor the decisions that have come forward, we need to question them a bit more. And as Liz said, bring the two sides together. We need to listen to, the voices on both sides to come to a good decision.
Thank you. Any rebuttals? Yes.
Yves Gauthier. As a hands-on kind of guy, I would actually go in the field and check and do exactly the work that those guys are doing and proposing. So with the hands-on approach, it's kind of easy to actually make your own mind on it and put a vote forward.
Mr. Gauthier, anyone else? Rita Was? And just to let you know that this is your last rebuttal.
I know.
Thank you.
I see a desperate need from council to direct administration to use a variety of consultants and to find out their background. What I've witnessed is that options are not disclosed in major purchases, and some of the consultants really, I found, were lacking in information. So this is something I think really needs to change.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to our next question from Stephen.
Okay, this question is for Kevin Layton, Blaine Hagan, and Kerry Milder. Beginning with Kevin Layton, as a member of council, if you were approached by a family who wanted to build a home to accommodate, say, an aging parent, disabled child, or college-age students, or even simply just a preference to have a summer kitchen in your lower level, but you were restricted to building a traditional single-style dwelling due to zoning. In other words, the zoning would not accommodate that. What would you do?
Kevin?
Boy. Can I have a minute to think?
Certainly Certainly, Kevin. We'll come back to you. We can go to Blaine first, and then
Yeah.
come back to you, Kevin. Thank you.
You know, I wish I had that minute myself, but that's all. Communication. I think it's extremely important to be upfront, and I know there's quite a few different housing developments that currently have that, but you may call it an illegally placed suite, if you will. And I think the most important thing is to be sure to do the research and stuff that you require to know what is safe, safety being the number one thing. As we realize there's sure not a lot of space for available for rent in the city, so if it's a suite or if it's you know, the mother-in-law suite or whatever, it should be looked at, and I've got no problem in you know, bringing that communication up with those that need to deal with it.
Thanks, Blaine. Carrie Milder?
Well, I think when you're talking about these kind of situations, you need to take into consideration that a government has to have structure. In other words, it has to have policy and bylaws and so on. But in order for a government to effectively serve its people, it also needs to have flexibility. And flexibility in this case would allow for things like that, where you want to have an apartment in your basement for your mother-in-law. So while it's important to have all these rules and regulations, there also needs to be flexibility to serve the people.
Thank you. Now, Kevin Lake.
Yeah, thank you. It just, right along with Blaine said, when you've got the regulations set up or the area set up, a move to a different zone or whatnot, or maybe ask for a special, you know, a special bylaw change or a special area change to be made for that specific house because of the need of the family, because of what they need. It just, because, well, with me, for example, I live in a Lethbridge housing house at the moment, and I'm getting a dog this December, and I needed to get special permission to get that dog. And I had to go through all of that information. So, you know, something like that may be needed in this case.
Thank you very much. We have several rebuttals. We'll start with Mr. Parker.
The question was asked, what would I do as a member of City Council? Well, I have a past history of doing this. I would work with that individual to work with development services to find a solution to the problem. There are ways within the land use bylaw that people can get waivers, they can get exemptions, and the key is to work with the surrounding neighbors. I think that's important that what a member of council has to do is help facilitate, and I've done that in the past.
Mr. Pribersaw?
Great minds think alike and fools seldom differ. He stole my thunder. We have democracy, and we had an exhibit of the democracy of our citizens here with Riverstone redevelopment, the multifamily use there. This is where it's at, folks. This is what I will be listening to. This is what I will be operating in. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Spearman?
Thank you. I think we do have to provide places for people with dignity and respect. I talk about being a caring community. I've worked with the Rehabilitation Society of Southwestern Alberta, now called the Ability Resource Center. I understand what it's like when people age and they want to stay together. We need to find creative solutions to allow for those people to stay together in our community, to live independently, and we need to have our housing industry assist with those solutions, and our city needs to be sympathetic to those type of situations that families face.
Thank you. Bridget Burns?
Thank you. This is actually something that's come up quite a bit, and I think we're going to see more and more of it because families are changing. The way we're building our houses are changing. So we have to look back at why is the zoning, why was it the way that it was, and is it still relevant now? I think this is a bigger picture, and it's more than dealing on one of. I think what we need to do is start reviewing to make sure that these bylaws and these regulations and these things are in place are still relevant. There was a situation that came before us that we could do a one-of situation for, where the house had to be built for an adult person with a disability so they could remain independent in their home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joey Shackelford?
I think most people understand why, zoning bylaws are in place, but, an example looking back historically is the debacle on 16th Avenue, the big house there a number of years ago. And, the neighborhood wasn't consulted, people weren't consulted, but things change. This is the 21st century, you've got to be a little bit more flexible. Things, new ideas like infill housing, secondary suites when rental property is tight. I think council has to be open to many, many options. And,
Thank you very much. Thank you. Darlene McLean?
I think definitely that we have to look at more creative infill and density applications, and it needs to be more evenly distributed around the whole city. There's various studies why not doing that does not create social issues. They become too concentrated and visible, and it's not good for the whole landscape of the city. And at any rate, it's very important again to spread it out throughout the city.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Any other rebuttals to this? Dylan Hargreaves?
I think that one of the major things we need to do is look at the purpose of initial zoning. And at times that might be no longer relevant, at times it might be more relevant, and we need to evaluate it, but based on the decisions of those who are in the communities and they're in the areas based on the zoning that might be there. I also think that this is something we need to really take into account in long-term planning, making sure that as we plan new developments, we're meeting the zoning needs and not just useless zoning.
Thank you. Any other rebuttals to this? Thank you. We'll move on to our next question. Angela?
This question is for Wade Galloway, Tyler Shade, Rena Wass, and Makotani. Beginning with Wade. Keeping industry in mind, what do you think it takes to create a sustainable community?
Mr. Galloway?
I appreciate the question, and by my math, I think it's the second one. My understanding was all candidates were going to get one each, but I'll happily answer it if that's the protocol.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, could you repeat the question then, please?
Keeping industry in mind, what do you think it takes to create a sustainable community?
Well, a sustainable community is a multifaceted approach with many elements associated with it, but sustainable is certainly a city that is growing at a healthy rate. I don't think anyone would advocate that the city of Lethbridge should stay at this population that it is. Sustainable involves growth that's reasonable and measured. It reflects an opportunity for individuals to purchase the homes that they do want at home, where they want them, and at a market price that is agreeable. So it's a multifaceted approach that everyone plays a role in, but certainly council is the one that would be leading the charge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Galloway. Tyler Shade?
I think sustainable community involves a number of aspects, as Wade indicated as well. Not only is it just regarding housing, as we're talking about today, but also ensuring that we're dealing with providing community services, public services, commercial services in the area, a mix of mixed development and diverse development housing, and ensuring that the community is safe and welcoming, and keeping it livable in terms of environmental aspects as well, and transportation.
Thank you. Rena Wass?
I think one of the things we really need to do is manage our resources and our waste more efficiently. We have to realize that the world is growing. We're at 7 billion, and demands on our resources are increasing with emerging markets from China and India. I am very appalled at seeing, and I know a lot of the builders are, at all the waste that goes into the dumpsters. We could be repurposing that, and that's been proven to create some new sub-economies within our economy. A recent Dragon's Den episode, a fellow from Victoria taking drywall and remanufacturing it. I mean, this is precious resource, and we are currently not seeing it as a way to diversify our economy. Viceroy Homes, I don't know if you've heard of them, but They and Simon Fraser University are two industries that we need to look at.
Thank you, Ms. Moss. Thank you. Makotani.
Safe city and happy citizen make the good city. So I'll suggest the qualified, well-educated building inspectors who are hired by the city of Lethbridge. And naturally clean water, clean earth, clean soil, no fracking, no digging, no whatever within the city of Lethbridge. We have to fight for this stupid Alberta government's permit sold to this digging company. If we allow it, it will start doing more and more. And pay back, Bridget, everyone else.
Thank you. Rebuttal? Start with Rob Mayashiro.
Thank you. So sustainability takes on many faces. And two of the things you want to look at are people going to live in the places for long term? So one of the things that the CHBA can look at is implementing the Aging in Place Specialist program that's been offered nationally to allow seniors to stay in their homes longer and to renovate them in order for them to do that. As well, the city can develop the World Health Organization's age-friendly community tenants where we build the environment, we build the community to accommodate people that are aging, which in turn will accommodate every single age group to live better.
Thank you. Mr. Purvisov.
Thank you. And again, regarding the sustainable and the development communities that we have architectural control in, I am fortunate to live in one of those communities, and I am also very respectful of the inspectors of the city that do their diligence and keep our community sustainable, have the industries that the businesses that are allowed in the communities to go with that. And that's something that we have in place already. We just have to continue to have that enforced and followed as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you. Martin Heavyhead.
Part of addressing sustainability is also addressing decay that comes along with having a city. Many communities in the United States, larger cities, have taken their ghettos and places that are abandoned and uninhabitable, taken them apart and reused or repurposed those materials that it was built with, like bricks, so on and so forth. And in order to address growth, we also have to manage that which we already have and prevent the symptoms of poverty and decay that end up coming along with that. So thanks.
Thank you. Any other rebuttals to this? All right, we shall move on to the next question. Anita.
This question is for Peter Day, Rob Shiro, Martin Heavyhead. Peter Day, we'll start with you. The construction industry needs qualified and skilled workers. What do you know about the expansion plans for the trades department at the Lethbridge College, and how would you support this project?
Peter Diggs.
That's a good question. One I didn't expect. I know that there is a need for skilled workers, and certainly would support EDL and as far as their Choose Lethbridge campaign, and something we need to look at. I'm also aware that the college is looking for partnerships for that, and so certainly would need to investigate that further to find out ways to support that. But certainly that is a need that needs to be addressed in the community, because it is a concern, that shortage of skilled workers.
Thank you, Peter. Rob Mayashiro.
Thank you. I'm well aware of the trades program at the college. I understand that the students are going to actually build homes. I understand the city of Lethbridge is going to use some of their discretionary funding to pay for the development fees or the permits or something. Permits, right. I think it's important that we develop those the apprenticeship programs in Lethbridge due to the fact that Fort McMurray is still stealing all our tradespeople at an alarming rate. And if we can grow them here and keep them here to develop our service industries, we'll all be better off for that.
Thank you. Martin Heavyhead.
Everybody should have a trade to fall back on, whatever their career choice is. something, you know, the market goes up and down, life goes up and down, and to have that security in your life that this is something that I know how to do. I know how to rewire a house. I know how to do framing. So to support, for the municipality to support the college in any way possible to make those endeavors clear. And from what I understand, the post-secondary cuts, the trades were untouched by that, as far as my knowledge goes. Thanks.
Thank you. Any rebuttals? Yes.
I think the college and the city and the Home Builders Association have to work more diligently on this program. I think we have to advertise and market this program. I had the privilege of going through the 2 college homes that are actually completed on the west side to see the workmanship of it. And if you haven't had a chance to go through it, they are excellent. They rival any of the home builders' own products of their own. I think that the home builders have already, a number of the builders have committed to it over the next 3 years. And
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you. Chris Spearman.
As a trustee, I supported the Career Transitions for Youth program. I also participated in the trade shows that we put on involving high schools. For 3 years, we tried to promote trades. The situation in Alberta is very tense, if you like. It's challenging. The average tradesperson in Alberta is about 55 years of age, maybe older, and I think it's an excellent project that the home builders have taken on with the college to promote the trades. We really need to do that in this town and ensure that we have tradespeople coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spearman. Anyone else? Dylan Hargreaves?
I'll use up my second question on this because I think it's very important. Lethbridge College needs a new trade building. This is something that we've seen. Myself as a student and working in student government there, I see a number of people from the college community working towards this project. This is something that the city needs to get on board and support as fully as possible, because we need to work with the provincial government, lobbying on their behalf, because this is something that affects our community right here at home.
Thank you. Anyone else? Joey Shackelford.
I fully agree with, you know, just about everything that's been said here on this question, but I think sometimes we're missing the boat a little bit. As a former high school teacher, I think we need to really push it at the high school level, the internships and apprenticeships at that age group, work with the separate and public school boards. You know, I think the old myth about, you know, I want my son to be a doctor or a lawyer, you know, it's still there, but the reality of it is that there's great jobs in the trades, and there has to be better communication at the high school level and get the kids started early.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Stefan?
Yeah, it definitely has changed, and the days of my son wanting to be a dentist might be replaced with my son wanting to be a finishing carpenter. This question is for Jeff Carlson, Mark Lieb, and Ryan Parker. Beginning with Jeff Carlson, how would you evaluate and ensure the cost competitiveness of city-delivered services that directly compete with private industry delivery, such as utility tie-ins, paving, driveway aprons, etc.?
Mr. Carlson?
Thanks, Steph. I appreciate the question because I think it is one thing that the city does need to always focus on, is can we provide services cost effectively? Our tax dollar is always stretched. The utility dollars are always stretched. And as council, it's sort of been incumbent on us to make sure that we are providing the right value for the services we deliver. And we should always evaluate that, because if we can find efficiencies, we can pass it on to our residents and to our ratepayers. And so I think it's something we should always reevaluate, and we can use the expertise of the experts in the field to help us evaluate that.
Thank you. Mark Lee?
I believe that City Council should provide value for our tax dollars. In that, I'm open to meeting with home builders to determine whether the private sector, public sector, or both can provide that at a more cost-effective manner. I've met with a few builders that have informed me that they can get services done by private industry for a less and a more timely manner than what the city provides. The other issue with that is that some of those, right now, under the current legislation, they're not allowed to be able to do that, and I have an issue with that as well, and I think that needs to be re-examined at the city level.
Thank you. Ryan Parker?
Just following up on Mr. Galloway earlier, I just out of fairness to my colleagues, I know some people are not going to be asked a question. I've been asked a question. I don't mind answering it, but I know for our time that some people won't be able to answer a question. Did you want to refer that to someone else? If not, I'll be more than happy to answer it.
Everybody will be asking
Okay.
questions.
Okay, I just got 2 questions now, so that's why I just want to make sure. Perfect.
You're special, Ryan.
Well, I'm not special. My mom says that. I think in any part of within the municipality, infrastructure, utility services, we're always striving to find efficiencies. To tell you that we're the most efficient community in the world, I'd be lying to you. I think it's important that we work with the stakeholders, such as the Lethbridge Construction Association, UDI, and the Canadian Home Builders, to find greater efficiencies. They're the ones on the front line. I've sat down with them over and over again. They've given me great advice, and of course, I've taken the advice forward to our administration. So that is the key.
Ryan? Any rebuttals to the question? Marco Tati?
This is a bit away from the builders matter, but MX, do you know we produce the gas, huh? MX does the administration collecting money, but MX is a UK company. We have to, at least within the city of Lethbridge, have to make the administration of gas company Lethbridge.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. McRae?
Yes, I just, on this utility tie-ins and paving, et cetera, I realize that the city does a lot of that work themselves. However, I would not be opposed if private enterprise came to the city and proposed a mock tender, so you could basically compare the costs of our services and, or the city's services rather, against the cost of a private enterprise. And then council could take it from there and decide which would be the best method to go about performing these duties that we have.
Thank you, Mr. McRae. Anyone else? All right, then we shall move on to the next question. Anita?
This question is for Jeff Kaufman, Harold Perversive, and Joe Morrow. Beginning with Jeff Kaufman, how do you feel about having a standard set of requirements that must be met in order for an individual or a business to pull a building permit?
Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you very much, Anita, for the question. During this term, I actually raised the inquiry to our city manager about the existing process. One of the things that we had been talking about was looking at having the journeyman ticket as being the factor for pulling a building permit in the city of Lethbridge. I think it needs to come back, though, to the question of values. What do we value in our community in this process? I value a home that's been built safely. No one's been hurt in the construction of that home, and a home that's going to remain safe for me, for my family, for my neighbors, my neighborhood. So you take it back to additional standards like core requirements. I know CHBA is working on its own safety standards as well. Emphasizing those components of the greater community value, I think will have far greater benefit than providing just a designation to pull a ticket. Tying it back to what we value as a community, what you value as an industry, what we value as a city.
Thank you. Mr. Permasaw?
Standardization in the pulling of the permits is very good. It levels out the playing field. It gives everybody the opportunity, and nobody is given special authority or special privileges. Having recently built a house here, we kind of went through the hoops as well, and we understand the procedures, and we also understand the requirements that the pullers have to meet in order to get their permits. Sometimes they go back and forth across the table, and that's important, but the standardization is very also important to keep our sustainability of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Morrow?
Well, I think in the past the standards were there, and then somewhere along the line a few years ago, I think they were changed where it was the standards were slackened off a bit so that someone else or whoever that didn't meet the have the journeyman tickets pull permits. I'm of the belief that the standards need to be there, and so I would support anything that creates the set of standards, so that the requirements are equal for everybody, so that everyone plays the same, has the same level field, and that we know that whatever will come from that those buildings, the homes or whatever they may be, will be built safely and meet all the requirements, so that our community feels that they're safe and know that they will have no issues with anything that could possibly go wrong. So the set of standards, I think, are very important.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Any rebuttals? All right. Next question, Angela.
This question is for Roy McEwen, Liz Iwascu, and Leah Schwitzer. Beginning with Roy, what do you feel is the main priority in the construction or development industry that affects citizens, and what is your strategy to improve this?
Roy McEwen.
Thank you. One of the main priorities, obviously, is to create safe housing. But one thing that I think the construction industry is doing and possibly needs to improve on, with respect to the community, is the commercial waste that is happening. And as a city, if we could help them to properly dispose of that and recycle what we can, and give incentives so that that sort of thing happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Liz?
Oh, I was waiting for you to say my name. Thank you. I actually agree with a lot of what Rory just said, that the construction industry, and I believe that their number one priority is safety, just the same as it would be for the public and for those of us on city council. So I leave it to them. I think the most important thing we can do is let the experts do what they do best, and if they face any barriers because of what's going on at City Hall, for them to let us know. And our job is, as an intermediary, to step in and help streamline the process for them. That's what I see as our big engagement. I agree with Rory also that I would really like to see more recycling done by some of the smaller builders, and if we can work on that, that'd be great. Thanks.
Liz? Liz Switzer?
Yeah, I think there's some problem areas that the construction industry has looked at, some bylaws that don't serve the purposes, like the hoarding bylaw, for instance, and there seems to be an area of disconnect between the face of the Community Development Office and administration, in that sometimes the requirements for pulling permits are convoluted and difficult to access. So there are a number of issues that I think the industry wants to focus on that would make life much easier in terms of collaboration with City Council. And obviously, in general, the safety and the sustainability of their industry is paramount.
Thank you, Leah. Any rebuttals, Mr. Parker?
The question was, what are the two main issues facing the industry? First and foremost, I think development permits getting done in a timely way. I've heard it over the last few months that some permits have taken close to 3 to 4 months in the commercial sector to be given. That holds up all the trades. Second big issue facing both UDI and the home builders is off-site levies. They're going out at an increasing rate. I know we have to think outside the walls here, because there's the way it's going up on an astronomical rate is unfeasible for a lot of builders right now, and true, we could pass it on to the homeowner, but at the end, the homeowner is getting punished as well. So we need to find new funding sources if possible.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Thank you. Jeff Carlson?
Thanks, Pat. Not really a rebuttal, just to add, I thought some of the main priorities that I'd like to see, or I see at CHBA, of course, safety, both during construction and the final product, but affordability and choice for homeowners. And I'm pleased to see that that is some of your priorities going forward with your business efficiencies, minimizing the barriers for folks, and for choice for the homeowners. We do need to do the market scans occasionally. We need to be able to adapt. Alderman Parker did mention the off-site levies. I think it's something that we've worked very closely with your organization and UDI, and will continue to do so.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Any other rebuttals? Peter Days.
I think the two things, Jeff had mentioned, the offsite levies, they're approaching $25,000 a lot in 2016, and they're really becoming unsustainable and need to find a way to share those costs. And I think the other thing is the LERD, that why is the city in the real estate business? And I think that we really need, I'd like to investigate just how much that is costing taxpayers, and are they really making money?
Thank you, Peter. Anyone else? Leah Switzer?
Regarding offsite levies, I really don't think that builders object to the concept of the offsite levy. The problematic area in offsite levies for me is when that money is being used for things other than development that is adjacent to the development that they're paying offsite levies on. And I think that's something that needs to be looked at.
Thank you. Anyone else? All righty, we shall move on to the next question. Stefan.
Well, we seem to have a bit of a preamble, but it's necessary for this question because we have the statements made that growth pays for growth. But there's a new theory that new development has a demonstrable reduction in costs of all services delivered. We need to recognize that. Beginning with Dylan Hargraves, Kerry Milder, and Michelle Madge, the city of Lethbridge fees on new homes and multifamily developments are reaching an unsustainable level in the city of Lethbridge. The lack of affordability within the city is forcing more and more people out of the city and into surrounding communities. What other ways of funding growth would you explore to ease the financial burden on the new home, condo, or apartment purchaser?
Dylan Hargraves.
Thanks for the question. I think growth is extremely important in Lethbridge, and it's part of the development. And when we're looking at fees and we're looking at funding, it has to be connected with not only what it's costing to create homes right up front, but also the tax base over the years after that, and looking at how those two connect. So I think part of the situation has to be about examining the new strategies we can do and where the money is really going to come from. Maybe in some cases we need to weigh a little bit more on industry. In other words, we need to make sure that it's affecting some of our larger businesses here in Lethbridge more so than always just the residential areas for people, because people need homes. But it needs to be done in a fair and equal process, and that's something that we need to consult and dialogue about.
Thank you. Kerry Milder?
Well, I think, again, as Dylan just pointed out, this all leads to good dialogue and good conversation. We need to keep things affordable for people. We need to be able to allow them to purchase homes. And so anything that we can do as a council to ensure that that kind of thing happens then is really important. And I would certainly be open to reviewing whatever we could in order to ensure that that happens.
Thank you. Michelle Madge?
Thank you for that question. It's dear to my heart as I'm working on a condo project on the north end of the city at the moment. I do think that the fact that we charge the same mill rate for taxes on a condominium as we do on a single family home needs to be looked at. The condominiums take up a smaller footprint, and we have people paying the same taxes. So I think that's something that we should really address.
Thank you. Any rebuttals? All right. Next question, Anita.
This question is for Kerry Mulder, Joey Shackelford, and Jeff Wall. Beginning with Rory. Innovation in a new community design has been the goal of our industry for some time. Many of our community outline plans include innovative ideas which have been successfully incorporated in other Canadian cities. At times, we have difficulty convincing city administration to modify the current standards to approve a new innovative idea. How would you propose that administration be encouraged to respond to market-driven demands? And I messed the names up. So, it's Kerry Mulder, Joey Shackelford, Jeff Wall, and Rory McEwen. So I apologize for that. Rory, we'll start with you.
I missed the question, I'm sorry.
Okay, Well, we're a pretty innovative group, and we ebb and flow with what the market is demanding of us and how we want to stay ahead of communities and build a vibrant city. If we find that we are roadblocked in these new innovative ideas that are created by our industry leaders, how do you propose to support us to move past that?
I think this goes with communication with you guys, finding out what the problem is, trying to remove possibly some red tape that would affect you moving forward. And apart from that, I'd have to do a little bit more research. Thanks.
Very mild.
Well, when it comes to innovation, sometimes that makes people nervous. I think what I would do as a city councilor, and hopefully be able to encourage the council to do, is to bring all the parties together and act as a mediator in order to get these things accomplished. But when you're talking about the vision of a city, I think at all times we need to be open to innovative ideas and look at creative ways of developing our community. And so I would be very supportive of new ideas coming in and would encourage, strongly encourage administration to do the same thing. But definitely the dialogue would have to be there. And I also think it would be important for councillors to be up and aware of what's new and what's coming in at all times. So that would require meetings that were outside maybe the normal council meetings and that structured meetings. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Joey Shackelford.
Again, thanks for the question. Yes, I'm very much an advocate for new and innovative ideas when it comes to housing in Lethbridge. I'm an advocate for infill housing. I was lucky enough to understand that process. My son did his master's on that a number of years ago in Calgary, and you know, their city council looks at it. There's an option there for the elderly as well, to be able to put a small apartment or something on your back property if it was zoned properly and the size of the lot would accommodate it. Secondary suites, downtown development, everything has to be on the table. Especially when it comes to the environment and things like that as well, and to give builders opportunities. You know, if you're a small construction company just starting up, maybe that could be your niche, is to do infill housing or something like that, where you can make a decent living at it.
Thank you. And Jeff Wall.
Thank you. Very good question. As we look at progressing forward as a city, part of one of my stances is the progressive planning. I think innovative ideas we always need to be able to consider and to look at. I think collaboration between the CHBA and other interested organizations, sitting around the table, looking at possibilities, looking at other cities that have implemented similar ideas and how that would help benefit what we're doing. At the same time, I think we need to look at the reason and the rationale for why the current status quo is, and can we still meet those needs at the same time moving forward with some of the new ideas, whether it be infill housing or a mixed purpose where you end up with some residential in the midst of commercial or small business. So you have a neighborhood store and you start to develop neighborhoods within the larger metropolitan area.
Thank you, John. Any rebuttals to this? Chris Simpson?
I think innovation is the only way that we're actually going to be able to build our city properly. The experts that the CHRB and other associations are bringing to us, they're going to show us the way that new developments are going to happen, and they're going to happen not only commercially successful, residentially successful, but urban planning successful. So definitely innovation, we need to take our blinders off and make sure that we're open to all suggestions, and we need to work together as a team.
Thank you. Jeff Carlson.
Thanks, Pat. On a case, I'm very pleased to talk about innovation. It's something I ran on. On a case-by-case basis, we've got mechanisms in place, a Municipal Planning Commission where citizens can come forward and get waivers, talk to the community lens that we have on that commission to sort of excite and try new things. On a broader basis, we've actually put in something called innovation zones, where we've put the challenge out to our community, our developers, our builders to say, here's an area you can come in, talk to council, excite us about something, and we will give you the thumbs up. So the
Jeff.
processes are there.
Thank you. Carrie Milder?
Well, I just wanted to add that I think it's the role of City Council to set the tone at the top and infuse a sense of excitement throughout the city administration and the community as a whole for innovation for the city. And I think, you know, we want this city to be a place where when people come to visit, they want to live. We want this place to be somewhere that people hear about and they want to move here. So I think it's the tone at the top that the city is responsible for.
Thank you. Jeff Kaufman?
We have to remember that innovation is actually one component of sustainability as well, and not lose sight of that. Yours is an industry that's constantly changing. You are the experts. You're traveling out around the world. You're seeing different practices. You're seeing best practices. So to your question, what I would do nothing different than what I've done this term already, which is continue to meet with your organization, with your organizations, to learn about the processes, learn about what's happening in other communities, and advocate through resolutions at City Council on behalf of the best practices.
Thank you. Anyone else? Blaine Higgin.
Alderman Iwascu mentioned a little earlier how important mediation is, and bad or poor communication is obviously the number one breakdown in any situation. I think City Council definitely has to be abreast of what's happening in our community at any time, so we're not presented with that deer in the headlights situation if it arises.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Shea.
Thank you. I thought you were looking for my name.
No.
For the last couple of years, I've had an opportunity to attend some of the show home tours as well as the Southern Alberta Art Gallery's house tours and tea. And they always feature a number of exciting, dynamic homes. And this year, and I've forgotten the name of the builders, but it's approximately 12th Avenue and 10th or 9th Street on the south side. And they have a number of new homes that are really exciting. And I think an innovation adds to the creativity and the vibrancy of our community. And what I do is actually to foster dialogue and engagement with organizations
you,
as yourself and the Planning
Thank
Commission.
You. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on to our next question. Angela?
This question is for Fiona Doherty, Yves Gauthier, and George McRae. Beginning with Fiona, can you describe to us what industry-related issues, whether it's residential or commercial, you feel most passionate about?
Fiona Doherty.
I think it would have to be environmental issues. I think that recycling, reusing, repurposing, reconfiguring, infilling in our older neighborhoods, I think that there are a lot of things that are exciting right now about the building industry. I think that new homes are great, but I think that older homes can be repurposed. I think that with the downtown core in particular, we have some beautiful historic buildings that could be repurposed into housing. I believe with the north side, we have some lovely older buildings that could be repurposed and reused. I think it's environmental issues that I'm the most passionate about, I'd have to say.
Thank you. Yves Gauthier?
I would say myself, we're living on the south side. Commercial developments are really getting exciting over there. And that's actually the way we'd like to see the city actually expand and have a little more of that vibrant commercialization that is going on right now on the south side, and spread the wealth, basically. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McRae?
Yes, one of the issues that I see here is affordability, and as a city council, we must endeavor to make availability of residential's properties, their permitting and the zoning and the bylaws and the taxes and the off-site levies. We must try to keep that affordable. The economic viability of the community depends on it, because without people, we do not have economic viability for businesses. And again, to be environmentally responsible. I know this issue is continually at the forefront these days, and with the city's situation on the west side and the south side, where they've just built the new stations, that would be one thing that we would have to look at down the road for curbside recycling.
Thank you, George. Any rebuttals? Wade Galloway.
I think one of the important issues facing the industry is equal access to inventory, which is land, whether it's a greenfield or brownfield. As important as trades are, without land upon which to build, the trades don't have a job. The Lethbridge land development competing against private capital is an inequitable situation, in my opinion. There's virtually limitless public dollars that can allocate capital and can artificially impact individual builders and individual choices with respect to the consumer. So that's an issue that I think is important that needs to be addressed going forward.
Thank you, Wade. All right, move on to our next question. Steph?
This is my last question for the day, so before I answer the question, I want to say that a lot of our questions have been directed today at the relationship between administration and council. It's important to recognize that CHBA, UDI, and the LCA recognize that we have one of the hardest working administration teams in the province. We have developed one of the best relationships I see out there, and I have a lot of experience across the province. And so our questions are more directed to understand that future councillors and existing councillors and mayoral candidates understand the importance of that relationship and how to maintain it and improve it. So I just wanted to give that little preamble before I ask my question. In addition to that, we do have one of the best building inspection permitting processes in the province, and we get our permits back faster than any other community in this country, on time, every time, and it's an amazing organization to work with. So before I ask the question, this is directed to Michelle Madge and Jeff Wald, beginning with Michelle. Building residential and commercial properties require the city inspectors to work in partnership with contractors and trades. How would you further improve that communication and existing cooperation between contractors and city inspection services?
Michelle Madge.
Thanks. You're asking how to better get the two working together? Okay. Or to improve upon it? Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that the relationship between the admin and the CHBA is so good and that permits are coming back. I think keeping the communication open and perhaps bringing the two departments together, the two different teams together, would be a great way to ensure that they both understand each other's point of view and what's necessary to move forward the most efficient way.
Thanks, Michelle. Jeff Wall.
Thank you. And I agree, it's good to hear that it's working well. I think there's always the opportunity to look at a situation that's currently working well and look for opportunities for improvement. Often communication and conversation is the key to making that happen in almost any of the situations. For the inspectors, I know there's times where they find issues or grievances, things that need to be redone, and sometimes getting the inspector back out, maybe it's later that day or the following day when it's been quickly resolved, and yet sometimes their schedule fills up. So some possibilities of creating some free space or some opportunities for revisit later in the day, or working better on a timeline that would match between those who are doing the work and the inspectors, to just see some more streamlined aspect in the industry, improving it to operate a little bit better.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else to rebut? Mark Lee.
I think that the city should look at something similar to the banks, where you have designated people dealing with commercial, designated people dealing with residential. That way they specialize in those particular areas. I also think that the process of getting permits should be streamlined so that you have builders that are doing spec homes. They can get one spec home approved, maybe pay a higher cost for the permit, and then when they have additional homes built under the same specs, that they pay a lower amount over a period of time, like 12 months or 24 months or something like that, so that we can streamline those.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Yves Gauthier.
Well, I would suggest to actually use our new technologies to the maximum. Cut some red tape. All our inspectors can actually dress up invoices and send them out right away on a fraction of a second. So I would suggest to use our new technologies, our pads, to actually get our faster service and more accurate. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Davis.
Thank you. My rebuttal is actually to the preamble. I appreciate hearing that there has been an improvement in communication, a little bit different than what I have been hearing from the home builders. But I think what I understand is there's good communication between home builders and administration, and good communication between the CHBA and councillors. But then there's a disconnect there between the three. And so, to clarify, to have three together at the table at the same time is what would certainly do nothing but improve things. But I'm glad to hear that there is an improvement.
Peter, anyone else? Makotani?
Hello. During the last several forums like this, I've learned the most effective, most efficient city administrators of Lethbridge sound like a Darth Vader, something you can get to, and then even now, more efficiency, less time to get the permit, like 2 to 3 months to get the building permit. You guys who've been in the council, including Dodgett, for the last 3 years, you should have done something to get the administrator.
Thank you very much, Michael Talley. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Next question, Anita.
Although this will be my final question, I have the honor of making our closing statement. But this is around city land development, and our association is incredibly passionate around this. So my question is for Jeff Kaufman, Blaine Higgin, Joe Morrow, and Liz Awaskew. And I'm going to start with Jeff Kaufman. Providing the city of Lethbridge remains in the land development business, what would you do to improve the lot draw process for the reputable builders outside of the chosen builder group?
Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you, Anita, for the question. Your caveat, providing the city remains in the land business, I mean, that's something that we obviously have to recognize how that should be going forward. To your specific question, though, in terms of the lot draw process, City Council a week ago, I amended a resolution regarding the Crossings Building Group, suggesting that administration bring back a policy on lot draws, because the City of Lethbridge does not have a policy on lot draws. We have a tradition, and the tradition is anybody shows up, anybody gets to put their name in the hat. With the issue or concept of builders groups, whether or not we go down that road is something we need to be, the next council certainly needs to address as well. What I would certainly propose or like to see is there be some sort of condition or consideration where people actually come forward and say, I have so much money, I can afford this number of lots. And if you've got the capital behind you to build, you put that in, then the number of lots are actually drawn at the end of the process. So you have people at the table who have the finance, have the ability to buy a lot. And that could be a single homeowner or a large builder.
Thank you. Blaine Higgin.
Well, I'm not going to take too much of your time because I need to be honest with you. I'm not really familiar with this program, and I would be lying if I said I was, but I will find out about it. Land development, as far as the city being in land development, I think I've discussed it with numerous different people that I think that is something that, I guess in the perfect world, as builders, I'm sure we'd like to see, or not we, you'd like to see the city maybe less involved with land development so that there's more opportunity to take on that responsibility yourselves. But again, in the real world, I don't know how quick that would happen or how it would happen. But again, it's something that I would like to visit, and I need to do more research on it so that I'm not giving you an answer that I don't believe would be correct. Thank you.
Liz Awaskew.
Thank you. During the last election, I publicly stated that I objected to the city being in the land development business, but now that I know the purpose of it, it makes more sense to me. It's like when you get a new job and what you thought it was going to be like before you got there changes once you're behind those doors. I've changed my mind because I didn't recognize the value of having lots made available to the public. Now I recognize the value of that. What I don't like is a percentage. I think that the 50-50 split needs to be changed, as Alderman Kaufman suggested. We're having a look at that in the new year, or your new council will. I hope I'm one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. And Joe Morrow.
Well, it's because of things like the lot drop process that I'm not very supportive of, because of the entire real estate department, because to me, there is no equality
There is no fairness, and so for me, it starts right back when I was on council when we first did Riverstone, and I've been questioning the city of Lethbridge being in the real estate and land department. So I think, and part of my issue is that needs to be reconsidered and restructured, if at all we keep it. My preference would be that they leave it to the private sector because they know what they're doing. If you eliminate that, then there would be no law draw, and I'm of the belief that any individual person in the city should be able to go to any one of their chosen builders and have know that that builder will build a good quality home, because in my mind, most of the ones that meet and fail and are part of the CHBA should have all the requirements and standards to assure that a citizen will be able to have a quality home built by anyone. So to me, it's all about options. Thank you.
Any rebuttals? Mr. Ellis.
Thanks, Pat. A little bit of history is required on the Lethbridge being involved in land development. It is true that in most of the private sector land development projects across the city, they are closed or exclusive to a builders group. So the city does provide one of the few opportunities for individual builders to get their lots. Now, it is important to remember that while there are a lot of private developers currently in Lethbridge, that has not been the case, and there's been several stages throughout our history where if the city wasn't developing lots, nobody would have.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Anyone else? All righty, I believe we have one last question, right? Okay, Angela.
This question is for Wade Galloway, George McCrae, and Mark Lieb. Beginning with Wade. Residential development at the south end of the west side has left many people there with poor access to the amenities in the power center in the south end of Mayor McGrath. What would you do to facilitate construction of this long-anticipated third river crossing in our city?
The third bridge question. This council just recently did adopt a transportation master plan which does outline the need for the third bridge, confirms its general location, and presumes in a population of 130,000 people, which at current population growth is about 30 years out. So that's a dialogue that we really need to have with the community. I think with new development coming on board in the crossings and the north edge of the western side of the city, we may see less of a cry for a need for the third bridge or perceived need. Balancing that against a leisure center and ice arena and curling rink that's being placed on the far extremity, which is now going to give a lot of you east side residents a reason to come see us on the west side. It's quite nice. Come check us out. So third bridge, it's out in the future, I think, and it's one of the things that we're not going to have funding for internally without seeking to borrow funds for it. So it is something we're going to rely on external government funding to bring to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you, Wade. George McCrae.
Yeah, I'll agree with Wade, the third river crossing. As it stands now, I think the prudent thing to do at the moment would be to determine our traffic counts on the existing Hoop Up Drive Bridge. I think probably that bridge is most busy between 6 and 9:30 in the morning and 4 and 7 o'clock in the evening. There are concerns, of course, when it's winter, because there's only one way over there besides the old Bridge Hill. We must take a look at where our funding is going to come for this bridge. It will eventually be built. And with the development that's coming on the west side, Copperwood Crossing, Sunridge, and Paradise Canyon, that this may come to us sooner than we anticipate. And at that particular time, an evaluation will have to be made as to what the city's contribution will be and what type of funding we can receive from the Alberta government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mark Lee.
Thank you for the question. I think it's inevitable we definitely need a third bridge. My questioning is on timing. I think it's probably something that's going to be a few years down the road because of the cost. The development that's going on in the west side of the leisure center and the twin ice rinks and what have you will definitely increase the traffic flow to the west side. I think that there's got to be more amenities over there so that we can give some release on the Whoop Up Drive, such as hotels and what have you on the west side. I think that's more of a priority so that less people are having to travel back and forth. With regards to that traffic, if you put a third bridge in, I still think that the Whoop Up Drive will get the majority of it, because right now, as the west side is structured, most of the university, the development for the leisure center, all of your shopping comes right off of University Drive. So I don't think, putting one farther south or north is going to take a lot of traffic off that bridge.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Rebuttal, Jeff Wall.
Thank you. Also, as with Wade living on the west side, I understand the challenges that we face, and I would also agree that I think the need for that bridge is going to come sooner than later. I think part of the last council has done a lot of work and a lot of research into how to make that happen funding-wise. I think on council it'd be our responsibility to continue to pursue those possibilities and those options, that we may be able to move it ahead sooner rather than later with available external funding.
Thank you. George McCrae.
Yes, I just wanted to add that in the interim, we seem to build 2-lane roads and then put massive subdivisions at the end of them. I'm suggesting that what we do is we build the 4-lane roads first, then put the subdivisions in. This would, like I go to Copperwood quite often, and you've got a 50K zone from the fire department to the entrance to Copperstone where Crossings is. The right-of-ways are already there. I think we should be building, and this will alleviate the congestion in the meantime.
Anyone else? Kevin Lee.
You want to go before me? I remember some time ago when I saw a plan, the third bridge was already drawn into the plan, and it came up by, I believe it was called McLeod Trail, or what it was called back then. But there was a questionnaire a number of years ago if they wanted to do the third bridge or widen the bridge and widen 6th Avenue, and 6th Avenue was chosen to widen instead. And it's definitely time, I think, to do another questionnaire.
Thank you. Anyone else? Lane Higgins.
When I was in management of Save On Foods, I had made a comment to a fellow that came in and was doing some training about how long it took for me to get to work. And I was living on the west side at that time, and I complained that the 6.5 minutes was a little bit crazy. And he had told me that about an hour and a half each day his transportation is. So I think it's inevitable we're going to have this third bridge. Timing is a big thing. As we develop more businesses on the west side, there's going to be less taxing on those roadways. So of course that can alleviate some of the pressures to get that time until we can get the monies to do it.
Thank you, Blaine. Rory McKeown.
Well, I might as well use my rebuttal while I got it. I agree with Mr. Higgin. Things that we can do to alleviate certain congestion problems is by what the builders are doing now and creating communities within communities where people can shop in their own areas. I'm not saying we need to alienate one side of the city or the other, but if you have enough stuff on the west side where the west side residents feel comfortable.
Thank you, Ms. McKeown. Thank you. Jeff Wall.
I would agree that there's measures that we can take to alleviate the need for the third bridge of more industry, more business, hotels and stuff on the west side. That doesn't negate the fact of the people that drive back and forth across those bridges to go to work because their work is on the opposite side of the city than where they've chosen to live. So I think the balance out, the need will always be there, and again, pushing it sooner than later is, I think, going to be necessary.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Bridges offered to sell me a rebuttal.
No, you cannot sell another candidate a rebuttal. Good try. Good try. So this concludes the question and answer period. Are there any submissions? Written submissions from the crowd? You can give them to the runner. The runner is. The runner's right there. Is there any? Yeah, exactly.
have a name of who this question has come from, but the question is, what is your vision for an inclusive community for all members to participate? What do you think of the new bylaw Vancouver passed on inclusion? Who's this question from? Right here? Sir, who would you like the question asked to? Anybody who wants to answer. I think we'll limit it to 3, if that's okay.
Yeah.
We'll go by the same rules. 3. Okay.
Could you repeat that? Could you repeat that?
No problem. What is your vision for an inclusive community for all members to participate? What do you think of the new bylaw Vancouver passed on inclusion?
I don't know.
Mr.
what
Spearman.
Vancouver.
It's very important that we address inclusiveness. I've tried to do that in my platform. I've tried to address in different issues that people face, people with disabilities. I have experience with that. I provided information on my website to people who speak different languages. Lethbridge is a growing community, and we're bringing in new people. We have people here who face challenges. We always have to be sympathetic. Your local government is the level of government that affects your lives the most. And we need to make sure that we're always considering those people that face challenges in our community, and we need to make sure that we look after them. We need to be a safe and caring community, and that's what I seek to do as your mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Morrow.
Well, first off, I can't comment on the Vancouver inclusion policy because I'm not aware of it. But I think for me, inclusion for me means being able to allow somebody to have independence. And I think some of the things that we can do to allow that independence is, what comes to my mind first and foremost is mobility. So we need to make sure that we have at intersections, curb cuts. We need to make sure that we have access for anybody to push the walk button or to enter a door, enter a public building. We need to make sure that we have that. We need to make sure that we provide access so they can get from one end of the city to the other, whether it's on paths or however, but it needs to be safe. And the other thing is, we obviously, people that are independent rely on public transportation, so we must make sure that is able, we create a system that meets their needs so that they can get from point A to point B like most of us can.
Thank you, Joe. Bridget Mertens.
Thank you very much. So this bylaw was just recently passed, and it talks about building townhouses and making them so that they're adaptable and universal, so that they can be changed into barrier-free homes as people age in place, which is a fantastic idea. So it's not just about accessibility. The question was also about inclusion, which is important. There's many barriers that our citizens face, whether they're the physical barriers. There's also financial. We heard about language barriers. We're going to have an increasingly aging population in our city. We know by in 10 years we could be up to 20% over 65. So it's extremely important that we're looking at these things. I spent 8 hours in a wheelchair to take a look at what our community was like, and I took a bus from my house and down to work, and I spent the entire day in it, and it was quite a learning opportunity for me, and I would highly suggest people do that. There are ways that we can do, and we have to continue to look at our development standards to make sure that we're aware of these things. The other thing that the City of Lethbridge is doing now, which is extremely important, is we're accessing barrier consultants to help us with our development.
Thank you. Makotani?
Please go to the library during the daytime. There are many youngsters who seem to be enjoying using the computers and all that, but wonderful. We have to have some program for the youngsters to be engaged in, be it music, drama, like Jeff is expert at, some kind of computer training. They have to have more computers. And City of Calgary has a very cheap yearly transit pass for very poor people. They changed it about a year ago, 6 months ago, but it used to be $45 per person per year for the financially challenged people. And with the payback money from the previous present councillors, Mayor Dojic, we could supply the bus passes for underprivileged people.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you. We have one more, and it's Jeff Carlson.
Thanks, Pat, and thanks, Chris, for the question. I agree with a lot of what my fellow candidates have said. Inclusion has been always very important to me. I'm very proud of the work our city does in being a welcoming and inclusive community. The work of CMARD, the Canadian Municipalities Against Racism and Discrimination, Community and Social Development Committee. I really applaud that work. It's also about affordability. We've talked a lot about affordable housing here today, but it's affordability for all city services. I've been very proud both terms to sponsor resolutions that Ms. Tanney was talking about to lower costs for our lower income folks. I haven't been successful in getting that through council, so it's nice to hear it brought up tonight, and hopefully we can get it brought forward the next term and finally passed.
All right, thank you very much. Steph?
They're giving me the privilege of the last question here today, and I want to ask 2 or 3 people simply, whenever there's a process, and we talk about a community and planning our community, we look for volunteers. And I want to question that process. I want to question the process that we need to make sure that or should we be asking experts, people who actually have knowledge on some of the planning in communities, and enforcing or forcing them to be part of that discussion. Sometimes just asking everyday citizens, although they are knowledgeable on specific areas in their neighborhood or how it affects them, we don't get all the experts that we should have around the table when we're planning communities. And I guess I wanted to ask what people's thoughts are around that.
Let's start with Rob Mayashiro at the end, because he wanted to get in on that. So go ahead, Rob.
I think your statement is very correct about engaging the people that know what's going on and the people that understand how things work. I think that's what we need to talk about here is get the people that know how things work to be on council, and to get the people that know how to engage the people that know how things work to be on council. It's not a difficult process to understand if you don't know everything, and there's no expert on everything on this panel. I'll tell you that. So we need to engage the people that are the experts.
Thank you. Rita Wass?
We have a great many experienced people here that are a wealth of knowledge. We underutilize them, and I think this is something we need to take a closer look at. We've got probably some of the finest facilities in club-owned facilities in our locale, and that's due to volunteers and people that have put forth their expertise. I think we can translate that into City Hall and make our community a better place for all of us.
Thank you. Jeff Kaufman? One more after Jeff, it'll be Joe Morrow.
Thank you. When I spoke with the CHBA Governance Committee on the relationship between your organization and City Hall, one of the things that I emphasized was making your organization what we call a policy community, being front of mind, so that when a decision, a recommendation, an option is placed in front of City Council, there are 9 people there who immediately go, Home Builders Association, LCA, UDI, what are their opinions on it? And it's about being front of mind, being present in the decision maker's mind. We can continue to encourage volunteers. We can certainly continue to broaden, and we should broaden the input in terms of inclusivity, as Mr. Schomburg has identified. But it's about making the process such that it's front of mind. Who do you think of immediately when you think of the words developing and subdivisions and home builders and commercial development, things of that nature? It's about front of mind. It's about being part of the process automatically.
And Joe Morrow to close it off. Joe?
Thank you. I was on council when, way back when this was discussed, and we did a report called the Cuff Report. And one of the things that he identified was that there clearly was a lack of communication between council and the community. So what came out of that report was a committee called CIC that we refer to, which is the Community Issues Committee, which council does every Monday, every other Monday, I should say, opposite to the council meetings. And I do recall that worked out really well for like about 3 weeks. And that was the Community Issues Committee, exactly what it says, to allow any member of the community, any organization, such as CHBA, to come forward and just talk to council. Unfortunately, the timing of it was not maybe that great because it was in the afternoon, and so it kind of panned out. And so now we use that CIC to get information from our administration. But I would love I would love to see nothing more than our community to come and use that opportunity of our CIC meetings to come and talk to council. And you can do that by simply getting to the city clerk's office and getting on the agenda. Thank you.
Joe. Thank you. That's going to wrap it all up. I'll give the final word here to Anita. Anita?
Well, that was fantastic, and we apologize for running over, but when we get this opportunity to have some transparent, collaborative discussions, even as a group of this size, I believe we need to invest our time. We appreciate our relationship with current council and our city administration. We appreciate that that relationship ebbs and flows. We appreciate that it's neither one of us related to traits of being lapdogs, and we appreciate those things. And we're fierce about that relationship continuing. So thank you very much, candidates, for coming and sharing with us your views to our questions. And thank you for our audience for coming as well. We really look forward to seeing you all at the polls. We look forward to having a huge voters turnout, because that is what is necessary to have our voice truly heard. So please join us for our, I don't know if it's upstairs, downstairs, these guys handle all that, for some refreshments and some mingling. And thanks again for investing your time in our industry today.
I know. That is still the best line.